Today's Toy Spot, we are finally having a look at the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series figure number 30 Deluxe Clayface. Yes, for fans of this channel, fans who have watched this channel over the last couple of years, you probably know one of my favorite villains of all time is Clayface. In fact, the DC Superheroes Clayface is still one of my favorite figures of all time, and I've been anxiously awaiting the release of the Batman Animated Series Clayface from the folks over at DC Collectibles. It has finally arrived. Picked it up from my local comic book store, and we're going to have a look at the figure. Not only do you get the figure itself, which you can probably see very clearly in the front here, also comes with an alternate head, comes with some alternate arms as well. Super, super excited. The back of the package could have been an opportunity for them to put some sort of read-up, but following the same pattern as the other DC collectible releases, Clayface gets nothing, gets squat. The side, however, the back bottom corner, does have DCComics.com. You can head over there and check out some stuff. You can also head over and check out your local comic book stores by going to www.comicshoplocator.com, put in your postal code, put in your zip code, bingo bango. You can find a comic book store in your area. That's your packaging aside. Let's move right along. Gonna take a break. I'm gonna come back, and when we all come back, we're gonna get a better look at the brand new Clayface from the Batman Animated Series line. There's more anyway, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. First thing we'll have a look at for Clayface is the same display stand that we get with all the other Batman Animated Series or the new Batman Adventures. In this case, we've got a 3/4 front and 3/4 back turn of the character. Looking very nice. The stand itself, however, the adjustable waist clip, has to be pretty large, unfortunately, to accommodate Clayface. It doesn't sit necessarily the same means in which another animated series figure does stand. In fact, it holds it, but if I just show you what it basically is doing, it's only holding it by resting itself against this portion right here. The clip itself really serves very little purpose. Yes, you can lower it a little bit more to get it around his smaller waist, but again, it doesn't really so much hold it as much as it is just serves as a support for the figure to lean back against. That being said, though, the figure does stand well, as you can see there on the side. But again, it doesn't stand so much just by virtue of the fact that the clip is holding it. You can see it's just leaning against it. All right, so let's take that, and we'll just kind of move that to the side. The figure is overall pretty good. I don't know, I guess maybe I was expecting a little bit more from him. He is large, I can tell you that. Comparing it to, say, the likes of an animated series Batman, you can see Clayface towers over him. An adequate proportion difference between him and the Caped Crusader, so I like that. The figure's face, though, I think bothers me. The default face. He actually has two heads. I'll show you the other head in a second. But he has only this head as a default. And Spot's got his camera here, or his phone, I should say, with him. And looking at this image, this is kind of the image I wish this Clayface could have had. More a default sneer, with more, I guess, the eyebrows being visible. The eyebrows being more sunken in, a big noticeable sneer. What we ultimately get, though, with Clayface is a very boring sort of head sculpt. The head sculpt's not bad, but it's not overly impressive either. I only use the phone really as a default means to show you what it could have potentially looked like, and I think I would have loved, everything else really about the figure looks good, I think I would have loved this head sculpt here if it looked more closer to this than what we ultimately got here. Now granted, he does have an alternative, but it's more the screaming Clayface. So there's really not like one in the middle. There's no in-between means to, I think, to fit what I consider a more accurate presentation of the way the character should look. Take the head off, very simple. By the way, these are rubbery, so you just plug these back into place. And plug this back into place. I think I might have pulled. I got to take this part off as well. Take this off. There we go. Almost gone. This actually needs to come off as well because, as you can see, the plug, I took the plug sadly off. This end, the plug's got to come off too to expose the ball joint, which is another one of the problems I have. Not a problem necessarily with the figure, but it's just the way that the construction is. I find the plug, getting to properly stand here, the plug doesn't sit properly in the socket portion of the head. It's always popping itself out. So I always have to keep doing this, putting it back into place. It's because this is hard plastic. The head, however, is soft rubber. So basically just by virtue of that, this little plug pops off all the time. Yeah, I don't know. Between the two, I suppose I do like this head sculpt a lot more than this head sculpt. It's entirely your preference though. But again, got to draw my attention back to my phone here. This is a more ideal look of the way Clayface looked. And in that regards, I feel like the DC Superheroes version of Clayface was a much better head sculpt than what we ended up getting here with this Clayface. I don't really care for this head sculpt. It just has a weird, awkward, he's screaming. In fact, also because it's so smooth up here and he doesn't have additional wrinkles, it even more so looks like he's just wearing a mask. This one, at least, I guess just because it's a little flatter, looks like it goes with the rest of his body. This one does kind of look a little bit more like he's wearing a big mask. So we'll just put that one back on into place. There we go. As for the rest of the body is sculpted quite nicely. I mean, it's got all the little folds and dripping portions of his clay body. He's fairly posable as well. I was actually thinking he would be a lot less in the way of posability. He doesn't feel heavy. I mean, he feels like he has light components to him, like his arms feel fairly light. His torso feels like it's adequate, but he doesn't feel as heavy as I expected him to feel. He's got a couple of interchangeable hands as well. I guess that is the real draw of the figure, is that he's got interchangeable hands. He's got a hook, for example. He's got a ball chain, kind of spiked ball with chain. Also painted as if it was made out of clay, which is nice. I like that. And he's also got himself an axe. I suppose it would be asking too much, but I would have liked if he had actually come with a hammer as well, like a big giant mallet of clay that he could have also used for Batman as well. Changing out the hands. Just go ahead and hold on to the bicep portion here and just pop it off the socket. You'd be very surprised how easily those things pop out. They stay where they need to stay, but when you need to pop them out, you're good to go. Granted, I don't know how you would necessarily display him with the axe. You could probably display it kind of like this, but then it throws off his bend of his elbow. It almost looks like it should be like this, but I guess who's to say who would normally have an axe angled sideways like this? You would think that Clayface would be angling it more so this way as he's slashing at Batman. Then what we can also do too is pop the arm off this side. And actually, of the two arms, this one I find is a little bit more trickier. I don't know why, really. It's a little more trickier to actually pull it off. So we'll just take this one off. This seems to be the easier of the two. And you can replace it again with the ball chain, the ball and chain there. Whoops. I worry a little bit about the chain, the longevity of the chain, I should say. The chain's pretty cool, but I don't know how strong that's going to be holding it for a long period of time. And then, of course, the default is that of the hook as well. And actually, while we're at it, might as well, while we're doing it, we might as well just take and replace the claw hand as well. We'll replace it to the claw hand so you can see the difference there as well. Wish I could get this hand off. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Perfect. Now, gave me a little bit more struggle earlier. As you can see, you can get Clayface holding both weapons. The axe I like, but the axe, just by the way that the arm is sculpted, doesn't look like it it fits the right way. It looks like it's just going the wrong way. Can't really also angle, you can angle the arm up, but it's just, it doesn't look good. It looks weird, like the way it's bent. And we'll go ahead and pop this off. And we'll replace it with the, let's replace both the arms back. Pop that off. Replace the arm. Place the arm with the right hand, I should say. There we go. And replace it with the other arm. There we go. For the rest of the features of the figure, as you would expect it, the torso of him is very much larger than the smaller portion of him. So he does have some difficulty standing just because he's got the smaller legs. As well, I find this one arm is very loose on this figure. The other arm's not as bad. This arm's a little too loose for my liking. When it comes to his posability, Clayface has the following. His head is somewhat on a ball joint. I mean, as you can see, the way we took it off, it only rotates. This alleviates any sort of ball joint hinge. I mean, you can see when we took this off, there was a ball joint, but you can't really do anything with it because it's got the knob on top of it. So while you can rotate his head all the way around, you can't really rotate his head up and down. It basically just stays the way it is. The shoulders hinge out very, very, very little though. That's about as much as you can get out of the figure itself. Of course, full rotation all the way around. There we go. It does have a hinge in the elbow, like so. There's a rotation in the hand, a rotation in the arm. You can't rotate the individual hands themselves. Nicely sculpted, but you can't rotate. There's no hinge or anything like that to it. He's got the upper torso crunch, and actually quite a considerable hinge backwards. And that also rotates. He has forward and back motion on the legs, a split on the thigh. There we go. And he also has a rotation and slight ankle pivot, slight ankle hinge on his feet. Spot really wanted to like this figure a lot. I've been looking forward to it. I wish, every time I was looking at pictures of Clayface, I was saying to myself, okay, I'm anxious to get him. I really want to get him. This is the figure for me. And of course, now pairing him next to Batman, he's an adequate size. So I don't really have any complaints with his size. His accessories, his interchangeable hands are a nice touch. I think one of my more favorite hands to go to, if I can get Batman to properly stand here, one of the more go-to hands I think I would probably use is likely the claw, or maybe the ball and chain. I like the axe, but just by the way the arm's been sculpted, it doesn't look like it sits properly when you put him in the socket. And then, of course, the big glaring problem I have with this figure release is I find that they didn't give him the greatest of sculpts for face. Between the two, I think I like the default more so than I like this head sculpt here, but I think neither of them really scream a cool Clayface head sculpt. In fact, I'd almost still keep that title to the DC Superheroes Clayface, which might still remain as my favorite Clayface of all time. This one had potential, but unfortunately just didn't live up to what I was expecting the figure to be. From the neck down, it's a good figure. Accessories are okay, but the head sculpts, honestly, I feel could have been so much better. Today's toy spot, we were having a look, finally, at the deluxe figure. This was the Batman the Animated Series. This was figure 30, and this was Clayface. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more toy spots heading your way. Thanks for watching. See you next time.